I actually like was in touch with my parents at that point. Like we would call them because we had an apartment that had a landline. And so I was actually able to talk to them a little bit. And even once, like we went to this anti-Scientology site that my parents had mentioned, but they mentioned everything carefully. They never said anything like outright.
On the phone when you talk with them.
Well, they were like, oh, check out this site.
So you get married in like 2002. You're 18, right?
Yes.
Something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't leave till 2005.
Right, the end of 2005, like November.
Okay. So after you got married, what was the build-up to 2005 with you leaving? Like, how did it happen? Were there specific things you witnessed that suddenly like made it click? Because I asked that because it is very clear that at this point you at least fully subconsciously know this place is really fucked up and I would prefer not to be here, but you almost like haven't admitted that fact out aloud to yourself.
That's
Is that
right.
fair to say?
Yeah. So the base that I was at, you know, it became where we were staying up all night to do these evolutions for things that had to get done to meet deadlines. It became like, you know, things became increasingly like people were getting treated worse and worse. And they started enforcing rules for the sake of rules. Like they weren't even things that were L. Ron Hubbard policies. And because I was now to a point where I was kind of like seeing things for how they were, I was like kind of like, I couldn't unsee it a little bit.
Yep.
Like I was like, I'm here because I care about people and I want to make the world a better place and I want to help people. And everyone in my life, like I knew my parents weren't suppressive people. There were other people who I knew who got declared suppressive people who I'd known my whole life. And I was like, they're not suppressive people. I know. I don't care what you say.
So you're starting to reason for yourself.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Right. Yeah. And I started to see that the people around me who I cared about were being treated terribly. And I was like, why would I care about helping some strangers out in the world who I don't even know when my friends are getting treated like garbage and being put on the RPF or being declared suppressive people, which is the worst thing you can be declared. Like I was like, why would I care about some strangers when all the things that I can see with my own eyes are not, those people aren't being helped. And I guess I kind of started to believe only what I could see with my eyes, or started to actually believe what I saw with my eyes. Yeah. And then there was a period that me and Dallas were sent to Australia as part of a mission to get a new building for a church out there. But it was really like, they were really just like trying to get rid of us. It was like this, we were sent to Canberra, Australia, which was like the smallest failing Scientology organization. And
where is that like relative to Sydney? Anywhere near it?
It's a couple hours away, but it's actually the capital of Australia, but nothing is there. Like anybody in Australia would be like, oh yeah, Canberra, like nothing happens there.
Like inland from Sydney?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And we were sent there because I kind of became more and more like problematic. Like I started like butting heads. Like they would come into the office and be like, you know, you have to turn off the music because, and I'd be like, why? Because it's against the rules to enjoy anything. And like, you know, they were trying to like take away, like, so some people had eventually gotten cell phones because it like, that's where technology was going. And then they tried to take away everyone's cell phone. And I was like, well, no, I'm not giving away mine. Like, try to take it from me. Like, what policy? And so I guess I became, or when they would try to make us stay up night after night, all the time, always, I was like, no, I'm going to sleep. I was like, who's coming with me? No one came with me ever. Nobody ever.
Because their last name is not Miscavige.
But not
Miscavige.
only, that's true, but I wasn't doing it. Like, I guess that makes me look like a jerk. Like I felt like I could do that because I was Miscavige. But no, I got in trouble for it too. And I was willing to have those people's backs. And in private, they would tell me like, oh, I'm not giving up my cell phone, or, oh, I'm not staying up either. I mean, I was right. They should not have been made to stay up all night. So whether it was because my name was Miscavige or not, like I was right and we should have been able to sleep. And I don't feel bad about going home and telling everyone that they should have gone home. And really, like, when people would get in trouble for certain things, being like they would go to the harshest punishment for them.
Mm.
And I'd be like, well, what about training them for their job? You never did that. You don't even let them to do their job training because they're staying up all night. And so I was just like calling things out and being obnoxious. And like, so I think they were just trying to get rid of me. And so they sent us to Australia, and they weren't going to send Dallas with me, but I insisted that he came with me.
Oh, again, even when you're married?
Yeah, they always separate husbands and wives in Scientology. They don't care. So we were there for like a year, and it was clear that they didn't really care if we were getting anything done or not. So I had a little bit of freedom. We were like in the regular world. We had an apartment, and we were meeting Scientologists there, and like one of them who was helping us with our project had a couple kids, and one of them was 2, and we were with her often because we were working together. And we're also like cooking our own food, kind of, which we were going to the grocery store, and we interacted with some non-Scientologists, and they were like seemed perfectly normal to me. And I was like,
So you had never really done
no.
either of those things?
Yeah, none of them. I never. And also like her little kid was so cute and like adorable and sweet. Like it was the first time that I like had. It was the first time I thought about having kids.
Mm.
Like I just like she was so funny and crazy.
Yeah.
And like she was like kind of like my bestie, and like I would like carry her, which was like that's like I think like carrying a baby
Yes.
is like something happens
Absolutely.
if you're a woman, maybe.
Isn't it like there's like an oxytocin release or something like that?
I guess.
There's a hormonal. Yeah, if I got the hormone wrong, correct it in the comments, but there is something scientific there. Yeah.
Yeah, especially at that age.
Yes.
Like so I was like probably like 20 at that time. And Dallas always wanted to have kids. He had the idea that the rule that you couldn't have kids as serial members would change, which was really fucking dumb. I was under no delusions that it would change. But I guess also knowing that he had family out, it seemed like there was a possibility that like if we left, we would have somewhere to go.
But they don't want a Thetan like you feeling another Thetan and feeling anything when you do that.
Right, exactly.
Let alone having one.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we finally came back from Australia, like the difference between living that way and like we would even like watch TV a little bit at night. And we had to like confess all that when we came back.
So you hadn't really watched like
No.
real actual live cable TV?
No, we couldn't watch TV. No. I mean, we went to bed at midnight. We weren't allowed to have TVs. Like they would get confiscated if anyone ever got one.
Had you ever used like a computer or the internet?
So the internet was in a locked room at the end of a hall, and it had all this software on it that blocked any anti-Scientology sites or words or anything. And you had to get special approval from different people in order to use it, and you could only use it for your job. And so when we were in Australia, I actually like was in touch with my parents at that point. Like we would call them because we had an apartment that had a landline. And so I was actually able to talk to them a little bit. And even once like we went to this anti-Scientology site that my parents had mentioned, but they mentioned everything carefully. They never said anything like outright.
On the phone when you talk with them?
Well, they were like, oh, check out this site. But they weren't like Scientology's evil and
right, yeah.
You're in a cult, because I would have just shut them down. So it's like you have to be so sensitive.
Subtle, absolutely.
Yeah. And like I think most importantly, you have to show them, like you have to not be the enemy. You have to be the place where they feel like they can always go to when shit goes down or when they want to leave. So just like being nice and loving is maybe more important than what you say about the cult.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you're the first person they think of when they have enough seeds planted that they eventually want to leave, maybe you'd be the person that they would go to. So they like maybe mentioned the site, but didn't tell us what to think about it. And then maybe told me 1 or 2 things that I knew to be true, so my aunt had been declared a suppressive person, and they told me the circumstances surrounding
Shelley.
it. It was my mom's sister, so her name was Sarah. Yeah,
because Shelley, that was later when she and she wasn't declared suppressive. She just got sent off, right?
Right. Well, she's still in the Sea Org. So she wasn't declared suppressive. Yeah. And so it was like, and they told me other people who had been declared, and I was like, oh, those people aren't suppressive. Like I already knew. Like, and I was already kind of disillusioned. But so yeah, so when we went back, things were just like starkly different. Like it was like if people were falling asleep when we were listening to an L. Ron Hubbard lecture, they would be made to clean the dumpster outside with a toothbrush. And it was like people were just like getting screamed at in front of the staff meetings, and it was just so bad. And then I,
Can we go back for 1 second?
oh yeah.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I'm going
but
on a roll.
No, that's okay. Just I guess it's like 03, 04, something like that, when you're in Australia?
Yeah, I think it was like 04.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you check out some of these sites, like you were saying, that your mom had pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like to finally see something written there or in video form, whatever it was, that is peeling back the facade on what has been your entire life? Like, do you immediately take it as, oh my God, yeah, wow, how did I not see this? Or are you like, wait a minute, this can't be true, because it's like your whole life is a lie?
Right. That's a really good question, because at the time when I was looking at it, I was kind of like looking at it like don't look directly at it. Like
Don't look at the light.
Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't until later when I had left the Sea Org did those sites make a difference for me, because actually somebody who I knew was posting on them later, when at that time I kind of didn't know what they were talking about. Like they kind of used some terminology that I didn't really understand, but just the fact that there were people out there against Scientology, that I think is what made a difference to me. Like that there was some dissent out there and people who had been in, that made a difference to me. But later on when I saw people who I knew telling stories about people that I knew, then it made a huge difference to me. Yeah. But at that time, it was still kind of like I was afraid to look at it directly. And I was just like, but knowing that it was out there was important.
How crazy is that, though, that like you're so wired by them, even though you've been pushing back internally a ton and rebelling.
Yeah.
You're so still wired into this that you're, without even knowing what's on the other side of the candelabra right there, you're just naturally making yourself afraid to even look at it. That is so frightening to me that it can go that deep.
It's so true. Yes, that was absolutely the case. And there were other factors. Like I didn't fully know how to use the internet. And then they used their like funny language that I didn't understand. Like, and then, yeah. So there were just a few things that couldn't make me really go all in and look at it.
Yeah. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.